Hey folks, Fernando Jr. video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case I'd like to talk about a few things that you could do during the lockdown, the quarantine, a few things to keep in mind while it still lasts, and even a couple of things to do afterwards. Before we go on, I want to thank everyone on Instagram that's sending me messages and positive vibes. It's Furfile308. I'll leave the link below there as always. And another thing I'd like to clarify, there's lots of folks that have read my first book, which is this one, The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse. I'm getting lots of messages through Instagram and Facebook about, hey, I love your book, it's great, I've been reading it and it's super handy right now, someone lend it to me or whatever, all these things. There's not a lot of people that know about my latest book, which is this one, Street Survival Skills. In fact, I was surprised. I think I mentioned it enough in my videos, kind of like in every single one, but a lot of people were still not aware that I have this book out. Yes, it's called Street Survival Skills. It's available in Amazon, and it is the one that I recommend the most because it's packed full of useful, practical information. The first one is more about the economic aspect of a collapse and how you deal with that. This is more generalized and practical skills. And there's also my second book, which I published a few years ago, which is this one, Bugging Out and Relocating, which is the one that a lot of people don't even know about, but this is handy for a lot of folks that live in places that are kind of not ideal. I was talking with someone yesterday from South Africa that's the kind of guy that probably wants to check out this book. If you're in a country where things are very tough and you're thinking, okay, maybe I have to go somewhere else, yeah, definitely Bugging Out and Relocating is a book. I wrote it when I first left Argentina. It was kind of my own research on the strategic aspect of making these cold-headed, calculated decisions as of which place is best, how to go about that, and bugging out as well when it's time to do that sort of thing. How is it that you go about that sort of thing? One last thing, today 4 p.m. Central Time, I'm going to be doing a live stream on the channel. So remember, 4 p.m. Central Time today, if you want to hang out a little bit, chat, send me a few questions and interact a little bit, that's going to be the time. Having said all that, let's get started. So, a few things to do during the quarantine as it keeps on lasting, depending, there's many places, it really depends on where you live. There's places in which they haven't even said what is it that they're going to be doing in terms of little by little, relaxing some of the restrictions so that people can go out and business start reopening and such. There's places where it's already happening, but for a lot of folks, it's still something you have to put up with. First, number one would be relaxing, playing it cool, trying to stay calm. There's lots of stress in the families. There's lots of people that realize right now that they don't get along as well as they thought with their spouses, with their wives and husbands, and all of this is creating quite a bit of tension. Besides that, you have to add to that mix that it is a bit of a stressful situation. It is a pandemic that is global, and a lot of people are very concerned, rightfully so, about it. So there's not a whole lot of good news when you turn on the TV, when you listen to the news. So it's a time to try very hard to be calm and try to stay as mellow as possible. This is all the mental aspect of survival and preparedness that doesn't always get as much attention as it should. We always like to talk about guns, knives, gear, all the cool stuff. The mental aspect not really talked about as much as it should, and we should talk more about it. I'll be the first guy to admit that these are things that I have addressed to a degree when, especially on my writings, for my website or my books, this idea of the 7 circles of preparedness, which starts with the basic core, which is your head, your mind, what's inside your brain, the attitude that you have, how level-headed you are, how you manage to control yourself in front of crisis and emergencies and stressful events. If you remain cool-headed and make calculated decisions to find the best possible solution to things, the way you research stuff, the way you learn and keep on learning, how you filter the information that's coming through different channels, that's crucial. That's super important. Are you being manipulated by the certain politicians, certain groups that have a certain agenda? Do you see through that? Do you know who this information is coming from and what they want to create in you, how they want to influence your opinion, your behavior? All of these are things that, we are receiving information all the time, and that information that we're receiving is growingly controlled and calculated so as to create a reaction from people. Can you tell the difference? Can you tell when you're being manipulated like that? And can you tell what's best for your own personal situation and your family? It's not always what the guy on the other side wants, what corporations, politicians have in mind. So these are all very important aspects. And number two, try exercising, working out as much as you can. If you are in a smaller house, a tiny apartment, it's going to be a little bit more challenging, but there's always options. And there's always ways of improvising things. I use an elliptical trainer, which I like using that thing. I've had one for some time, where I went through a couple already, but it's good exercise. The elliptical trainer, the advantage is you're not hammering on the knee so much, and you're not sitting like in a stationary bicycle, so it's not running or walking, but it's close enough so that you have a good cardio workout. If you don't have that, even if you have a flight of stairs, you can go up and down the stairs. That's going to be cardiovascular exercise as well. Even just jumping. If you put on YouTube some of those exercise routines, you do an hour of that stuff, you have different levels. We go back to this mindset thing. Don't look at the things you cannot do, look at what you can do with your limited resources, and there's always going to be a bunch of stuff that you're actually able to do. So, of course, if you don't have the same restrictions and you can go out for a run, absolutely work out, have a routine, combine a little bit of cardiovascular exercise with some strength, weights. You can even improvise those as well, just lifting heavy stuff and being creative. A ton of things you can definitely do, and this is all part of. It kind of works like in a circle, because with that mentality you have, you understand what's important for you. You start working out, and we're talking about that second circle. We start with the mental one, we expand that, it becomes the physical one, our body, which is our most important tool. How you take care of that, how you maintain your health. Do you have do you get yourself checked once a year, a blood test? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you keep all that in track? Do you do the best you can so as to be in the best possible health and physical shape within, of course, reason? These are all things that are very important. These are actually some of the more important things in terms of preparedness, but we don't end up talking a whole lot about it. There's some people that are in fantastic physical shape, but they don't have the mental attitude for it, and they just break down because they don't have the mental strength for it. Usually people that work out a lot are quite committed and are mentally strong in general, but it's not always the case. Some people like working out and they just like that aspect, but tough situations make them crumble. That's stuff that you have. That's why it's the more important part of it. That's why that's the core of everything that you're going to be building on top of it. If you don't have that mental strength when emergencies, crisis, disasters, when tough times come, you're more likely to crack. So work a lot on that, on being resilient mentally and of course physically as well. Number 3, try to boost your immune system and be in as good spirits, as good health as possible because of the situation at hand in terms of the virus. I'm talking specifically about sleeping well, taking your vitamin C's, eating a nice healthy diet with a good nutritional value, exercising, and staying calm. That's the part where stress comes in. If you work out, eat, but you're stressed out of your mind because of everything that's going on. Stress is the kind of thing that makes people sick, literally so. It is one of the greatest killers of the last couple of generations. Stress kills people. You have to get that through your head. It's the kind of thing that causes a number of immune system depressions, and a pile of things can affect you because of that, including getting sick with this virus. So yet again, the mental aspect, that's where everything starts. That's where that circle there's a point in which if you're working out, you're in good spirits, you're in good health, it's easier to maintain that and keep working on all those. But it all starts with what's inside your head. If that's not right, it's not going to be doing much. Sleeping a lot, I've been reading quite a bit about that. Vitamin C, definitely something you want to be taking every day. Sometimes in Amazon it's not, it's sold out, but you can still find it in some places. But having a good supply of that definitely is important. But sleeping a lot also is key. It has a pile of advantages. If you're in good spirits, if you're working out, it's also easier to sleep well. Number 4, trying to learn how to cook. Use this time so as to spend time with the family. Cooking is a good activity to do with the family, with the kids. These are valuable skills. If you teach your kid how to cook, how to prepare bread, how to prepare a meal, how to cook himself a dish of actual real food and not just a little tray thrown into the microwave, actual cooking, that is a skill that stays with them. These are memories that you could be building right now, and trying to eat like a family. I don't know. Again, these are things that are a little bit more cultural, but there's people that don't eat at a table and talk. There's people that just eat with the TV on, or just sit in front of the TV with a plate. Kind of like in The Simpsons, or with a little tray. Man, don't do that sort of thing. Have an actual table. Everyone sits down. You actually talk. Look people in the eye. You look at your kids, your loved ones, in their faces, and ask them how their day has been. Even if we are in a quarantine lockdown, we have internet. Everyone is either working, doing stuff from home, homework, or trying to do something, and a pile of things may be happening to each one, and you're not even realizing, even though you're in the same house, in the same place, right? So that's important. And learn to cook well. I mean, I've been doing lots of cinnamon rolls. Well, my wife has been doing cinnamon rolls, chocolate chip cookies, and I've been doing bread as well. Now, be careful with that, because it's easy to pack a lot of calories in those things. So be careful about that. It's not nearly as bad as fast food. If you do your own cinnamon rolls with natural, actual food ingredients, not only does it taste great, it's a lot better for you, but keep in mind the quantities. This is something that it's been asked. It's usually like 2,000 calories, but 2,000 calories is what you would go through in a normal day when you go out. If you're just going to be sitting at home all day and maybe doing half an hour or an hour of exercise, depending on what kind of exercise you do, but it's easy to do half an hour and burn barely through 200, 250, 300 calories if you're just taking it easy. If you're doing a little bit something more intense for about an hour, maybe 500 calories, but keep in mind there's a lot of time you're going to be sitting at home, not burning as much calories as you usually would. So try finding that point. Step on the scale and see how your weight is doing. Man, I have to slow down on those cinnamon rolls, because those are packing. And finding that sweet spot where, yeah, this is a good place where I am at, and this is just working for me, right? Number 5, try to be out as much as you can. If you have a yard, spend some time in the backyard, work in the garden, and if you have an orchard, if you have some greens that you're growing, ideal, perfect, that's fantastic. Now, there's a lot of people that don't have any of that and live in a tiny apartment, and there's none. Well, if you have some open place to be out, at least spend an hour or half an hour in direct sunlight. That doesn't seem like a big deal, but the direct sunlight gives you vitamin D, is it? Okay, vitamin D, it works against depression. It has a pile of advantages, that direct sun exposure, so work towards that as well. Make that part of your routine while this lasts. Finally, try to find ways of becoming resourceful in terms of what's going to be happening in the future, and we're going to be getting into that in a second. But there's lots of things you can do from home in terms of starting your own business, or becoming more independent, or having a side business besides whatever your line of work is. There's always possibilities. There's always things you can do, and working on those will give you that plan B, that additional thing that maybe complements or becomes your main thing. If it goes well, that would be fantastic. But having something of your own, that's a pretty big step. A lot of people, most people, I believe, don't have it. They just have this, show up to work 9 to 5, and they're back home. When something like this happens, you realize how dependent you are on that paycheck coming in. if you can supplement that with anything on the side, any activity, any line of work, or maybe something that's a hobby that could be monetized to some extent, find ways of doing that. This would be the right time. So this is during the quarantine. What after the quarantine? What happens after the lockdown? So what's going to be happening is one day they're going to be telling you, okay, now everything is fine. Go out there and start spending money that you may not even have. But it's going to be like that. You're going to be giving a day, and that day onward, the lockdown is relaxed or diminished in some way, and you have more freedom and you can go out. Use your head. Use this part of preparedness. Use this part of survival in terms of, okay, so yesterday I was not supposed to go outside, but today everything is fine. How logical is that? There's a good chance that's not going to be nearly as safe as they're going to be portraying it or pretending it is, because they want you to go out, start working, making money, spending money, get the economy rolling, which is fantastic. That's what people in power eventually will want you to do, and it's understandable because you need that to happen just to have an actual economy going on. Don't forget your own personal, individual best interest, which is not what they always have in mind, right? The crunching numbers, if some guy dies, it's just one more guy out of thousands that die each day, right? Besides coronavirus, people die every day. That's not something that a politician, a big corporate owner, some of the big companies, global companies that have very minimal interest on your own personal well-being because they're looking at something else, they're going to be very careful about their own personal well-being. Don't worry about that. But you have to worry about yourself. So in that day, you will have to take the precautions no matter what. If they tell you, okay, now the quarantine is lifted, you can go out and go shopping, of course, you can do all that. Take advantage of those freedoms, which are always great, but with the proper precautions. I wouldn't go rushing out without a face mask or a gas mask and wearing the gloves and avoiding certain places. So be cautious as you start going on. The moment where you can really relax is when this is over, which is not going to be anytime soon. You're looking at a year and a half, maybe even a couple years, depending on how this plays out. We just don't have enough information so far. So far, we do know that there's a very deadly virus out there, and you have to be very careful about it. There's people that even don't believe in that. There's people that believe it's all a big hoax, that it's just a flu bro, remember? Yeah, that didn't go out very well. But there's a lot of people that don't believe believe the earth is flat, so you cannot go by the lowest common denominator because it's quite low. Use your own head, be smart. So, in spite of anything that you're able to do, look after your own best interests and your own family. Then, number 2, which would be find a way in which you can improve some of the things you failed during this entire process. No one is perfect. Preparedness is a lifelong journey, or is a I heard that at one time and I liked it. The preparedness is like a journey and a path you take in life. I think it's more like a life choice. You choose to live a certain way. And it's never going to be stopping because you keep on preparing, learning, improving, adapting. You never stop learning. At least you never should. Anyone that is stuck in his ways and says, okay, this is going to be like this and like that, and that's it, that's how I prepare, done. That's not really a good prepper. That's not a good survivalist. That's definitely not a good modern survivalist. You have to be flexible, adapt, learn, adapt to the different situations. Be open-minded enough to admit when something better comes across, admit when you were wrong, when you were mistaken. That's also a critical part of it. And changing with the times. Look how even the official speech of masks don't work to yes, now they're mandatory, or no, they still don't work, but we need them for people that are actually in contact with sick people. It doesn't make any sense. So be careful regarding that. But going back to my point here, the second point, learn from this experience. Where were your weak points? You didn't have a gas mask? Bro, get yourself a gas mask. That kind of critical material you want. Even after this, pandemics, year and a half, maybe 2 years even with this thing, you're going to be wanting to get a gas mask and using it in many interactions where there's people that may be infected. May take a while, but this is not going to be, these things come in waves, and it's usually 2 or 3 waves. And it's usually that the first one, you can look this up, do your own research, but it's usually the first one is usually not the worst one. And it could go back, it could go up to the next winter even, which may be even worse than whatever we're seeing right now. So the things in which you failed, once you have the opportunity of going out there, preparing a little bit better, keep all that in mind and do best. And then ask yourself which are the things you'd like to do and improve on once this is really over, or at least over to a degree in which you can have more freedom for real, not just because of a politician telling you to go out and do your thing. But once you really have more liberty to do stuff, personally, there's a couple of things I'd like to work on. I like to learn how to sail. I was talking with Matt Bracking on a previous interview. That's something it's been in my bucket list for a while now, and I see how that would be very cool in different aspects and have a few advantages. So sailing would be something I'd like to do. Reloading, something I never got into, ammunition reloading, especially for 357, which seems like a cool caliber to get in there and see what you can do with good, solid, reliable guns. It's a fantastic caliber to work on and have different loads worked out. And radio, get myself my license if possible, or at the very least learn a lot more about it so as to have more knowledge for something that's pretty critical. The matter of information gathering, if something more serious happens and traditional methods of information and communications are impaired in some way, radio definitely a way to go, something very useful for a prepper, a survivalist. Guys, it's going to be all for now. Remember that in a few hours, 4 p.m. Central Time, live here in this channel. See you next time. Have a great day.